Study Guide, Perspectives on Enlightenment and Liberation. This study guide is based on the teachings of Sri Bhagavath as presented in the text Divine You. It explores the relationship between the intellect, the natural child state, and the realization of liberation through intellectual understanding rather than meditative effort. Review quiz instructions. Answer the following questions in 2-3 sentences based on the information provided in the source context. 1. What is the innocent state, and how does the growth of the intellect affect it? The innocent state is the natural state of the mind, characterized by a basic cognition similar to that of a child who has no unwanted categories or enemies. As the intellect grows, it accumulates memories and information that suppress this state, creating distinctions between good and bad, or cherished and unwanted, which leads to mental problems. 2. How does Sri Bhagavath define gnana, or enlightenment? Gnana is defined as an intellectually enlightened state that recognizes the total inability of the intellect to regulate the inner world. It is the mental acceptance that the intellect should abandon its adamant, "I will do it" attitude, and instead function merely as a tool rather than a controller. 3. What is the distinction between the intellect acting as a kartha versus acting as a tool? When the intellect acts as a kartha controller, it is dominated by obstinacy and projects its own desires and dislikes, creating internal conflict. When obstinacy is negated, the intellect functions as a tool, allowing the natural, innocent state to surface and the mind to operate in balance. 4. Why does the author argue that intellectual understanding alone is sufficient for realization? The author suggests that once the intellect realizes there is nothing to attain in the mental realm, the searching mind stops and the mind reorients to a different dimension. This intellectual clarity is the realization itself. Seeking a further conscious or experience-based realization only creates a new goal and weakens the initial understanding. 5. What is the concept of pravagam in the context of mental feelings? Pravagam refers to the flowing of feelings, like a perennial stream or river, where thoughts and emotions come and go without being resisted or retained. In this state, the small I, or ego, loses its rigid individuality and transforms into an endless, blissful movement. 6. How should an individual handle unwanted feelings, like anger or fear, according to the text? Unwanted feelings should be allowed to arise and disappear on their own course without any willful effort to regulate or remove them. The text explains that the moment one consciously tries to click or meddle with an internal feeling, its disappearance is delayed. If left alone, it vanishes spontaneously. 7. What is the difference between reaction and counteraction? A reaction is an unconsciously generated feeling that arises for a second, like a flash of lightning. A counteraction occurs when an individual justifies that feeling, such as anger, and consciously chooses to direct it toward others or attempt to control it. 8. How does Sri Bhagavath's view on attention and awareness differ from that of J. Krishnamurti? While Krishnamurti emphasizes choiceless awareness and attention as goals, Sri Bhagavath views these as shadows that should naturally follow an individual. He argues that making them targets of pursuit creates a hide-and-seek game that blocks liberation by turning a spontaneous process into a mental goal. 9. What is the liquid state of mind compared to the frozen state? The frozen state represents a mind stuck in specific experiences or shapes through meditative tuning and effort. The liquid state is the liberated state, where the mind is free of rigid shapes, allowing it to adjust to circumstances and flow without stagnation or permanent mental recordings. 10. What is the prescribed balance between internal and external efforts? The text advocates for 100% effort in external worldly affairs, such as business, family, and social duties, to ensure they are executed excellently. In contrast, the inner mental realm requires a 100% effortless state where one abandons all attempts to regulate or achieve specific psychological states. Answer key 1. The innocent state is our natural state, possessing basic cognition without the burden of recorded memories. The intellect impairs this by creating discriminatory categories, likes, dislikes, which eventually dominate and turn the intellect into an enemy of the natural state. 2. Gnana is an intellectual realization of the intellect's own limitations. It is not the glorification of the intellect, but the mental acceptance that there is nothing to be done or attained within the inner realm. 3. Kartha refers to the intellect acting as an obstinate controller that insists on its own way, I want this. As a tool, the intellect operates without this obstinacy, allowing the knowledgeable child state to perform with balance. 4. Intellectual understanding is sufficient because it triggers a reorientation of the mind. If one expects a superior experience beyond understanding, they create a future-oriented goal that prevents them from accepting their current state as the higher state. 5. Pravagam is the perennial flow of thoughts and feelings. It signifies a state of non-resistance where the ego melts into an infinite stream, moving like water that creates its own path around hurdles. 6. Unwanted feelings should be treated as involuntary occurrences for which the individual is not responsible. By not clicking or showing interest in them, these feelings lose their velocity and disappear faster than if one were to willfully oppose them. 7. Reaction is the first, unconscious part of a feeling that lasts only a second. Counteraction is the second, conscious part where the individual adopts the feeling, justifies it, and acts upon it willfully. 8. Sri Bhagavath believes that treating awareness or attention as a goal inadvertently imposes an attainment mindset. He argues these states should follow the individual automatically once the search for a specific mental state is abandoned. 9. The frozen state is a temporary shaped state of mind, created by meditation or tuning. The liquid state is the natural, liberated state, where the mind remains unswerving but flexible, adjusting to any vessel or circumstance without getting stuck. 10. The balance involves being a warrior outside and a Buddha inside. This means using willful effort and yoga as tools for external success while remaining completely effortless and accepting regarding internal mental processes. Essay format questions 1. The paradox of effort. Analyze Sri Bhagavath's argument that all paths are erroneous. Discuss how the attempt to reach enlightenment through meditative effort might actually serve as an impediment to the innocent state. 2. The knowledgeable child. Compare the child state of an infant to the intelligent child state of a gnani. How does the presence of an intact intellect change the nature of innocence in an enlightened adult? 3. Internal renunciation versus external action. Discuss the role of karma duty in Sri Bhagavath's teachings. How does his advice to continue in worldly service and marriage challenge traditional views of asceticism, sannyasa? 4. Critique of spiritual masters. Based on the text, evaluate Sri Bhagavath's critiques of J. Krishnamurti, Ramana Maharishi, and Buddha. Focus on his distinction between tuning the mind and liberating it. 5. The mechanics of karma. Explain the 3 types of karma, sanchita, prarabdha, and agamiya mentioned in the text. How does the liquid state of mind facilitate the dissolution of these karmic recordings? Glossary of key terms. Term definition. Agamaya karma. New karma generated by current actions and investments, which then joins the store of sanchita karma. Big IA, scriptural concept representing the universal soul or the pravagam flow, contrasted with the limited small I. Gnana enlightenment, described specifically as the intellectual understanding that there is nothing to be done in the mental realm. Kartha, The intellect functioning as a controller or doer, characterized by obstinacy and personal desire. Laya, a state of being engrossed or submerged in an experience, which can lead to the creation of mental recordings. Maya, illusion, literally meaning measured perception, the deception that mental boundaries and demarcations are cardinal truths. Mano nasa, the dissolution of the mind, not the absence of mind, but the liquefaction of the mind into a free-flowing state. Obstinacy, the adamant attitude of the intellect, I only will do it, that creates violent nature and blocks the innocent state. Prarabdha karma, the portion of total karma, sanchita, withdrawn to be experienced specifically during the current birth. Pravagam, a stream or perennial flow, the state where feelings and thoughts move freely without being anchored or resisted. Sahaja samadhi, a state of being in samadhi tranquility, while simultaneously engaging in the activities of the mind and the world. Samadhi, a meditative state of motionless mind or solid existence, considered a temporary tuned state rather than final liberation. Sanchita karma, the total accumulated savings of an individual's deeds and recordings throughout all existences. Small I, the individual ego or personality that identifies with a specific name, form, and set of memories.